Well, this is a problem just as an American citizen. Every time we use military action, every time we drop a bomb, every American taxpayer's name is etched on that weapon because our money goes into paying for this this enormous military apparatus, right?
This is CNN Breaking News.
We are following breaking news. South Korea's news agency and U.S. officials now confirming that an attempted missile launch by North Korea failed. And another new development, a senior U.S. official says the status of the North Korean underground nuclear test program as of tonight still remains unchanged. And they say the regime still could conduct a test at any time. We're talking about a nuclear test. Now, again, this was a failed missile launch that we now know has just taken place in North Korea. Meantime, we were there less than 24 hours ago during this massive military parade that included 2 canisters that you're watching on your screen. These canisters are big enough to hold intercontinental ballistic missiles. That's the type of missile capable of reaching the United States. Now, this is the first time Pyongyang has ever shown off canisters of this size. And we could just be looking at empty shells. We just don't know. Let's talk more about this with CNN political commentator, New York Times opinion columnist Charles Blow, and former Lieutenant Governor of South Carolina, Andre Bauer, a Republican. Charles, to you first. I know you wrote a column just this week in which you say Trump is full of pride, obsessed with strongman personas, and absent of historical and geopolitical perspective. This is the worst possible situation. The man who could bring us into military engagement is woefully deficient in intellectual engagement. So, Charles, when you hear about this latest development, are you worried about how the administration might respond?
Well, what concerns me more is that we don't seem to have an articulated strategy for dealing with any of the hotspots, geopolitical hotspots, whether they be Korea, whether they be Syria. I mean, the idea of just flexing muscle is not necessarily a political strategy. And what what this administration is running into is the same thing that the last administration ran into, which is the fact that these are very, very difficult things, situations to contain or to control. And we keep kind of, the war hawks keep beating the drums as if capacity is the same as proclivity. The idea that any nuclear state, I mean, what history teaches us is that when states, even when they become nuclear, not that we want any more nuclear proliferation, but even when states become nuclear, they are not necessarily inclined to exercise that nuclear threat. But we keep saying this would make them be capable of doing something. But that's not what history suggests that people who the states that become nuclear do, because they are also interested in longevity and survival. And any state knows that were they ever to use a nuclear weapon against someone else, they would be wiped off the face of the planet. North Korea knows this as well as we do, but we keep allowing people to beat the drums of war and pretend that this capacity means a proclivity. And that is not what we know at this point.
Andre, do you share Charles's concerns?
Oddly enough, a lot of what Charles said I agree with. I will respectfully disagree with one thing he said is an articulated strategy. Look, President Trump said he wasn't going to continue to give his strategy out to everybody else throughout the world. And I think you saw a very good strategy. He didn't tell anybody. We heard President Obama put a line in the sand, but when the president thought action needed to be taken, oh, by the way, he just happened to do it when he was having dinner with the president of China and let the message be known, he took care of 2 problems. Oh, have another piece of cake, and by the way, we're dropping 59 missiles right now, and you need to do something about North Korea. And what did they do? They immediately did something about it. They sent troops there, and they handled part of what could be our problem. You now see China reacting, which is very progressive, and he had a very good night that night.
Charles, is there any benefit to having a president who is unpredictable and maybe flexible, as he likes to put it?
Well, this is a problem just as an American citizen. Every time we use military action, every time we drop a bomb, every American taxpayer's name is etched on that weapon because our money goes into paying for this enormous military apparatus, right? The idea that you want to keep the American people in the dark is I find outrageous. The idea that the president of China would know about the military strike in Syria before some members of Congress, I find to be outrageous. The idea that your concept of flexibility and enigma means that the American people and the American representatives of those people in Congress don't even know what your plans are or what your actions in that case are, I find to be outrageous.
Let me get Andre in to respond to that. Do you, again, agree, and how important is it to you, Andre, to have a better, clear vision of what the Trump doctrine is?
Well, again, I agree with Mr. Blow on several points. He's very articulate individual. The first thing is, as a taxpayer, I don't want to be a globalist. I like that Donald Trump did push America first. But as Americans, we want to make sure we're safe. And so there are times when the president's going to have more information than I have, and quite frankly, most of the American public. And there are times when we have to trust our president, whomever, whatever party it should be, to make America and the world safe so that those folks aren't coming back to our country. And so he decided this was a strike that needed to be done. He had the meeting with the president of China. And again, around the world now, people are respecting us and fearing us, and he's doing a good job. And people are excited about America First again, but America First means making sure that Americans are protected. And I do, again, appreciate those missiles were over $1 million apiece. So you're talking about $59 million just in missiles. So I'm always concerned about taxpayers continuing to be the world peacekeepers. But now you see the UN getting more engaged in the process, and again, we're seeing results from that.
All right, Andre Bauer and Charles Blower, thanks to both of you. We are staying on top of breaking news right now out of North Korea, where there was a missile launch that failed this evening. We'll have much more straight ahead here in the CNN newsroom. Stay with us.